Hello again, everybody. Welcome to Knotty Yarnies. My name is Barb, and I reside in Ontario, Canada. Today is my first tutorial that I'm going to share with you. It's a very easy slipper pattern. I don't have to give you any kind of dimensions on it. What you're going to do is just measure the size of foot both in lengthwise and around width, around the thickest part, which is around the ball of your foot, so all around there for the width. Those are the two measurements you're going to need. You're also going to have a couple of choices. You're going to have a choice of having a pom-pom on the slipper or no pom-pom. You're going to have a choice of having just a slipper like this with no cuff, or continue on and have a cuff that either folds down or is stand up taller, maybe to go up halfway up your calf or something like that. Also, we can make a chain or put a ribbon in around so that it tightens and it puts a bow here instead of the pom-pom as well. I actually prefer that way so that it keeps it tight on your foot. So we're going to be making these today, but I'm not going to use a busy yarn like this. I'm going to be using a darker shade of Red Heart Super Saver, darker than this. This is just to show you what I'm going to be using. But it's a number 4 worsted weight yarn in case you're unaware. So it should take about half a ball. I will make sure in the description down below to put exactly how much grams I used. And it pretty much is really a square or a rectangle shape depending on your size. So my size of my foot, I measured my foot and it is my foot is 10 inches long by 9.5 around. So when I made my rectangle that I'm going to be making, because it's not a perfect square, I made it 11 inches long, and I think I did 9 3/4. I didn't want it, I wanted them to fit snug because they will stretch a little bit around your foot. They won't the other way as much, but they will around your foot for the width. So you want to add a little bit, like maybe 1/4 or a 1/2 inch at the most. I would measure your foot with socks on if that's the way you wear your slippers. If you wear your slippers bare feet, I would measure your foot when it's barefoot as well, because that will change the sizing of your foot. So basically that's it. It's just as easy as that, as making a rectangle, square, whatever. So it doesn't matter if the foot you're measuring is a child or a size 14 men's and everything in between. Like, you can make these, I've made them little wee ones all the way to men's. It's such a universal pattern. You could use any hook size, so use the hook size that suits your yarn. This I'm going to be making with a 5mm, and you could use any types of yarn. I actually prefer to use the cheaper acrylics because they have a scratchy feel to them, so they're kind of more like a grip, so you don't have to put any grippy stuff on the bottom. We'll talk about that later, but that's why I prefer that instead of the slipperier yarn. Like if I was going to use like a Karen Simply Soft, if I was going to use that would be a slippery yarn. Like when you're walking, you would slide so much on, especially if you have like wood floors or vinyl floors or tile floors, anything like that, you would slip on it. If you have all rugs, it wouldn't really matter. But I've also used as thick as Bernette blanket yarn for these slippers, and they turn out fantastic. They're super cozy. You just want to make sure you use the hook that it says on the side of the ball band what hook to use for that size of yarn. So it doesn't matter, again, it doesn't matter which size of yarn, it doesn't matter which size of hook, it doesn't matter any of that, just as long as our measurements equal the same as what your foot measures. So let's go in my room, to my craft room, to start filming for my first pattern to share with you, my slipper pattern. Stay tuned. Hi everyone, I'm in my craft room ready to do the filming of it. So these are things you're going to need to make your slippers. First, you're going to need the hook size that is to go with your yarn ball, whatever it says on the side of the yarn ball, plus 1 that's 1 millimeter larger than that. That's just for the chain row. That's all you'll need that larger size one for. You'll need a tape measure to measure your foot and to measure your slipper as you go. If you want to use a stitch marker, you can use a stitch marker on your first stitch or your last, however you feel comfortable. You'll need a yarn needle for darning in the ends and also to sew up the toe and the heel. You will need a pen to write down the size of the foot you're making or the size of your foot and how many chains you started with and how many rows you did, to keep track of rows you did so that you can know for your second slipper so they're identical. So we'll get started here. Put this all the way off to the side. So you're going to start with your larger sized hook that you need. Then you're going to leave a long tail for the cast on so that that'll be for to sew up the toe part of your slipper. So you'll need to leave about 20 inches and then do your first chain, which is like a little knot. So how I do it, I put the yarn, the working yarn from the ball across my hand, take the one that's the tail and I point, I wrap it twice so it has 2, take the back over the front and off your finger and just drop it, pull the tail in tight, put your hook in there, pull the tail in, or the working yarn end, and it pulls it tight on your hook. So now you're going to be making sure you use the string from the ball, of course, because this is long, remember, so you don't want to start chaining with your tail. So now you want to start chaining and keeping track of how many chains you're doing so it matches the inches on your either your ruler or your measuring tape. So like I said, my foot was 9.5 inches, so I want to do about 10-inch long chain. I already know how many chains it takes, so for me it's 33 for my foot, but I will chain and show you. So this is not a how-to video, do chaining, how to crochet. There's lots of other videos out there for that. If I have any, I'll link them down below after. I have none as of yet, so I know I have to chain 33. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You want to chain loosely so that even though we're using a bit larger hook, you want to still chain loosely to make sure it's going to work out. So every 5th chain, I usually stop and pinch the one underneath so I don't lose track. 1, 2, 3, 4, 10, and I pinch. 1, 2, 3, 4, 15, pinch. 1, 2, 3, 4, 20, pinch. 1, 2, 3, 4, 25, pinch. 1, 2, 3, 4, 30. I think I lost track. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. 2, 4, 6, 8, 20, 22, 24, 26, 28, 20. I'm at 30, so I know I need 33. 1, 2, 3. So that's just because I've already made the one square already. So you take your chain and you put it against your ruler or measuring tape. Start it at the 0 with the chain that's on there and go across. Now keep in mind, see how mine's a perfect 9.5 inches. I know I wanted it 10, but it will, once I start the next row, it will stretch a little bit with the stitches in it. So that's why I wanted you to do a really loose cast on, because it will stretch a little bit. So this is the length of your foot, okay? Not around your foot. The around your foot is how many rows you're going to be doing. So this is the length of your foot. So like this, if you were to put your foot on like this, that's how long you want your chain to be. So whatever stitch you're using, whether it be single crochet, half double, or double, you're going to do that now. So I'm done my chain row. So, oops, I've got it all twisted and turned here. So I'm going to start in the second chain from the hook. So that's the first chain from the hook, so the second. And, oh, sorry, forgot. Change from your larger size hook to your smaller size hook now. And it'll be easier. So second chain from the hook. I do in the back bumps for my initial row. You don't have to if you don't know how to do this, or look up a video that shows how to do this. I might make a future video on how to do the back bump. It just makes a cleaner finish and gives you a little bit more to sew into, because if you notice when I'm doing into the back bump, there's 2 on the other side of my hook, so it leaves a nice cleaner edge than you would if you just went in the one loop. So just something to consider, not a necessity. The slippers will still work out in the end, no worries. So just continue on, and I'll meet you back here at the end. So just continue single crocheting, double, half double, whatever your stitch or your stitch design is, right till the end. And I'll meet you back here. Okay, so I'm at the last stitch, so I'm going to single crochet in that one and pull my tail a little bit tight, and there's my first row. So what I would do would be to write down that I did 1 row, so I keep track of my rows, okay, so that I know how many rows I'm going to need for my next slipper. So next I'm going to chain 1. You could chain 2 if you're doing half double crochet or double crochet, however you choose. Some people even just do a single chain even when they do a half double or a double crochet, just to keep a neater edge, and that's just a matter of preference. So you do whatever works for you and whatever you're comfortable with. So the next row and beyond, all you're going to do is single or half double, double, do your pattern in all the way across. But what I like to do is just measure that, because once you started doing the stitch in it, it might change the length of it. So I put it on my measuring tape, and I'll see here mine changed a little bit. As you notice, mine goes to about 9.5 inches now, so it'll stretch easily to 10.5 even if I wanted it to. So there's a lot of play in this. So I mean, I wouldn't want it the exact measurement of your foot if you stretch it a little. So like my measurement of my foot is 9.5, it goes to 10. I just want to stretch it a little. If I have to stretch it a lot to meet that half to an inch bigger, I would tear it apart and do more chains. Honestly, like I would want it to be 10 inch by this point. So I'm comfortable with the little bit of stretch, because like I said, I've already did 1 slipper, so I know that it's going to be fine for me. So, but if yours does not, just lay flat and get to your measurement, take it apart, you're not very far in, and do an extra 3 or 4 stitches, depending on the yarn, the type of yarn you're using, because you can use whatever thickness of yarn. So if you're using bulky yarn, you might only need 2 more stitches to equal a half an inch or something. So continue on going back and forth in the stitch that you did, and I'll show you when meet you back up here in a second. Just 1 second. I just wanted to show you my second slipper. Okay, so I finished all the way up. So when I stopped the rows, I wanted to show you this before you continued on your rows. So when I stopped the amount of rows was when it was the length, or the width, sorry, of my foot. So the width around my foot is 9.5 inches. So right here I've got 9, almost 9.5, but there's a little stretch. So like I said, it'll stretch a little bit too. So, and we got to sew it. So say this is my foot, and I need to wrap, this will wrap this way around my foot. See how that goes? No problem. I don't have, that'll fit perfectly. Not that my hand is the same width as my foot, but that's how, just give you a reference of how it's going to go on. That'll be the heel end, this will be the toe end, and I'll show you how to put it together there shortly. But do enough rows so that you can put your foot in. Check it if it's for your own foot. Just put your foot in with socks on or bare feet, whichever you choose. Put it in and see if it wraps around your foot. If it doesn't, do another row or 2. Continue doing that until your foot fits in there. All right, the next step The next step we want to do is remembering keeping that, you know, that the rows this way are from heel to toe. You want to fold up your project. Okay, you have the short end. I forgot to tell you, leave a long tail at the other end when you're done. Okay, leave a long tail, like even longer than you did at this end. This end we're going to just do the toe with this one. This end we're going to do the heel, and it has more sewing for the heel part. So in order for the toe, we want to get our stitch marker out, or sorry, not our stitch marker. We want to get our needle out, and we want to thread the yarn through, and we're doing the toe now. Okay, so we want to find the corner. Mine, if you see, it's just a little bit off centered here, so I want to go over to make it sure it's just in the corner, so it's right in the corner stitch. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to just basically weave in and out. I'll show you this way, I guess. Weave in and out, see, in and out of the very edge stitches. Just weaving in and out, every row or two. It's not very precise. It does not have to be pretty. You will not notice it, believe me. Just in and out. Now if you run short on your yarn tail, you could always pull it. It won't make a difference. Or you can just, sometimes I'll do two like this, in and out, and do two. Weave in and out and do two. Hope I'm explaining this all right. Like, first time trying to figure out what works to explain to everybody, and I apologize if you don't get it. I hope you do though, because this is so simple. In my head it's simple, but in order to explain it to other people, it's a little bit more difficult. But yeah, you're just basically weaving down, in and out, down this one side, which is the width, across the width of your foot, okay? Until the very end. All right, we're getting there. Almost there. Just making sure to catch, you know, every row or two, and every, depending if you're double crocheting, half double crochet, but single crochet I'm doing every second row. And you want to stop when you get to the next corner. Now if you'll notice, if I was to pull this tail, see how it just kind of curves inwards. How cool is that? So what we want to do is do that very easily, like, not easily, you want to do it very slowly so you don't break your yarn, because some yarns are not as sturdy as others. So pull tight as you can. You will see where the toe is. So you will see where the gathering started. So you'll want to stick your needle in the top of that gathering, okay, to pull it together. See how it closed it at the toe up? It just closed it up. There's a little bit of a hole there, but we're going to fix that. So now we'll just keep weaving back and forth in around that toe to close up that toe area. So you just pick a little area here, and you go across to the other side, making sure to pick up stitches in there so that you're not going to see your toe stick out. So I like to do it about 3, 4, 5 times. The more the better. If you have that, should have a long enough tail to do so. So we're just going to keep going. I think I'll do one more after this one. You can't see a hole anymore, but once they start wearing, you just never know. So we'll do once more. Okay, and the last one, I always like to make sure I pop up at the top again, like right in the middle of the V. Okay, so we're right here. So what we're going to do next is we're going to continue to sew up this part. Okay, so we're going to leave a little bit for our foot in there. So what my rule of thumb, I usually like to do about halfway. So halfway between the toe and here. So this would be the 10 inches. I would do sew up 5 inches. So if you need a reference, what I would do, this would be the time when I would take out my stitch marker, and I would measure 5 inches from the toe where we sewed until 5. So here's the 5 inches, and I would make sure to go in here and then make sure the other side is even. So when they're going to be evened up so that there's across from each other, right? See if I do that? They're across from each other, so it's even. Okay, so I know it might not look it, but we'll figure that out too as we're going, but as I'm sewing. So we now just sew back and forth. If you're using a pom-pom, this will hide any imperfections. You can just go in the top and out the top if you choose. See here, there's, I don't know if you can see the chain here and a chain here. You could go in the outside chain and down into the outside chain on that side as well. And then up the outside chain and in the inside, or the outside chain, always through the outside. It kind of just gives it more polished, finished look if you choose. So outside and outside, or you can go through both chains as well. They look both equally as nice. There's not really a science to the sewing part. To me, it's more the look of your stitching throughout. So I keep going right until I get to my stitch marker. I might notice that they might not be even by the time I get there, and that's okay. I just decide, make a decision. See, when I get here, I notice that my stitch marker's in the last stitch, but one stitch over, so I'll probably just do one more and finish there. So what I do is I usually lock it in place and go through once more and lock it into place. I don't want to, I'm going to use this yarn later, so I'm going to leave that stick out. Now for the tail end for the heel. Now see, we got a toe area. So now we're going to do the up the heel. So we're going to thread the heel part, the heel tail onto our needle. Okay, we're going to put them together corner to corner. Sorry, there's so many ends here. And we're going to go through that other corner opposite of the corner where your tail end is. So it kind of joins them together. Oops, my other tail's joining in. And then I do it once more. Go through both. So it's kind of tight, joining them really well. And it kind of, see how it locks it in place? Now what you're going to do is you're going to stitch up all the way, whatever stitch you like to use. If you want to sew it this way, or if you want to sew it this way, whichever stitch you use, I just go this way. Like I stitch it up kind of, I guess, I don't know what this stitch is, honestly. Mattress stitch maybe. But I just keep going back and forth and I match up the rows, basically. Okay, so keep going back and forth, catching both sides. So I'm catching both sides of, see how there's the one side and the other side? I'm catching each row. I'm catching one yarn and one yarn. It doesn't, there's not really a science to it. It'll get sewn up one way or the other. Yeah, just as long as you're picking up one strand and one strand, that's enough. And just keep going back and forth. Okay, getting there. How's yours coming along? You want to do it as close to the edge as you can though, because then it gives you more room for your heel, right? So we're almost there. I just have another maybe inch and a half to go. Let me know down below if my lighting is okay for you to see what I'm doing, how the white is on the background. Maybe this is too dark of a yarn for me to use for you to see. All of these things, I'd like to know your feedback, please. Like I said, it's my first one, so I don't have a clue. Okay, so I just stitched all up there, so we'll spread that. See how it looks? Doesn't look too bad, right? So now what we're going to do is we're going to take that heel. So there's the heel. We're going to pop it up like a triangle. You want to see that from a different angle? There's the heel. Just squish it down a little bit. and pop this triangle part up a little bit, like halfway up the back of the slipper, and just attach it. See how I'm gonna put it through the kind of the seam that I just did, and then up through the middle of that triangle. And see, it's tacked on there. But now what I'm going to do is I'm going to sew down this side and down this side to attach it. So I'm going to go through a stitch here and up through that triangle part. The next one up through and through the triangle part, being very careful not to, of course, catch the bottom part of the slipper in there as well, because you just want to make sure you're keeping everything, not attaching something that shouldn't be attached, is what I guess I'm saying. So in order to get to the other side now, see, I'm almost done. I have one more stitch after this one to finish off the triangle. There's my last stitch. So that part from the corner down, you can't even really notice that, can you? So what I normally do is just weave my thread in down to here. So I just weave it in and out, in and out, in and out, all the way to the other side to pop it out. There we go. That looks good. And I pull through. Okay. Don't pull too tight. You just want it to get over to this side. We don't want to do anything crazy. So now we're going to start going in and out on this side to close in that part. Oh, my tail's a little, there we go. And we do the same thing on this side. Oops, this one's giving me trouble. There we go. And I should have one more stitch, I guess I'll do right here, just to finish it off. Okay, that one you could weave in your ends for that one. We won't be needing this anymore. So when I weave my ends in, I weave them back and forth 3 times. So I try to catch some, I go on the inside of the project and I go the length of my needle over. Okay, and I pull through. Then I go back the length of my needle. You can use a different area if you so choose. I usually just pick and choose. It depends on the stitch, it depends on the pattern. And one more time. This, I've never had any come loose. 3 is the charm. That's what I always say. Okay, and then I just get my scissors. I forgot to say you need scissors for this pattern. Silly. So you'll need scissors. I'm sure most of you have scissors around like myself, sitting around. So there is the basic slipper then. My foot would go in here. How neat is that? So now I can darn in this end if you choose. What I do is I leave it there for the cuff part, because my cuff part is going to have a strand here. So I usually like knot it. I don't like knotting things, but I usually will knot it so it just keeps it all tight, because your foot goes in and out of there so many times, right? So in order to do, I'll be back 1 second. Okay, we're going to be working on the cuff now. So if you want to do the cuff, if you want to, your slippers can be finished right there if you like. You could just weave a ribbon around here or a chain and tie it here to keep it around your foot. You could put a pom-pom on there if you like, whatever you choose, but that you could be totally finished like a slipper in that length of time. Easy peasy out of a square. Who knew? But if you'd like to continue on to make have a cuff on it or a fold down cuff, easy to do as well. So all I do is I flatten it then, and I do my chain again using my 5mm because I'm using the worsted weight. I join. I usually join right, like I said, because my join, I'm going to knot it with that yarn. So I'm going to join in the first and just with a slip stitch. I do the cuffs with a double crochet. So I chain up 2, okay, and I double crochet in the next, no, sorry, I chain up 3 and I double crochet in the next stitch, and the stitches are so easy to see. And I double crochet. Sometimes I do half double crochet on this as well for a tighter cuff, but I'm gonna chose to do double crochet just for speed for this one. So you double crochet all the way around, keeping track, because this is your first one. You want to keep track of how many you have going around, so that when you go to make your next slipper and you sew this part up, you make sure you have that same amount of chains all the way around for your foot to go in, because you need to have the match, because you don't want to have, say if I sewed this up a ½ inch extra, I would have just a small hole and the other one would have a big hole and my foot wouldn't fit in this one. So you want to make sure that the amount of chains that you have going on both sides, so when it's flat like this, we know it's double the amount. So however many chains across times 2. So I hope I'm saying this right. I usually wait to do the sewing of my slipper part. I do the squares first, both of them, and then I do the sewing up. So when I'm sewing up after the toe, I can count the amount of joins I do and do the same, and I measure how far on both of them so that I know they're equal amounts. So for the cuff around, anyway, back to that, I'm double crocheting into each stitch all the way around. So this is 3, 4, just keep continuing around, and I'll meet you back here. And I'm back. I did double crochet all the way around, and I did 36 double crochets after my chain. So I did 36 double crochets plus my chain. So that equals 37 double crochets if you're counting your chain all the way around. Okay, so then you're going to take, after your last one, you're going to join into the top of the third chain of that row all the way around. Okay, and then you chain 3 and you start all over. You just keep going around and around until it's the length you want it to be. If you want it to fold down, or if you want it to be slouchy, you can do however you like. You could even stop just at that if you just wanted a little wee one. As I was mentioning earlier, I like to knot those 2 yarn ends in. I'll just pull that through and see those 2, the beginning tail and that one. I just usually knot those in there in the shoe, and then I will darn the ends in. I'll just tuck those in for now, but I'll darn those in after. So they're out of the way and they're going to be super secure. So I'll continue around all the way around, making sure every row I chain 3 and 36 double crochets. So I would have 13 double crochets on this side and 13 double crochets on this side to make it even all the way around. And I'm going to do however many I want. I might just do an ankle, I might do a larger one and then have it fold down, depending on what you really like. So continue on and I'll meet you back here when it's done. I just wanted to show you that I did 3 rows on cuff. I've been keeping track of how many rows I've been doing. This is 3, so you could see that it would just go up a little up to my ankle. So if I wanted to stop there, I could, and I'm choosing to stop right there, but you can make it larger and then fold down. So, but I'm stopping right here. This is a good enough length that for the project that I'm choosing. So I will remember that it's 3 rows that I'm going to do on my next slipper for my cuff. Okay, so we will darn off, leaving a tail to weave in thereafter. But now I'm going to show you how to make a chain for the length to tie up here. So you basically want to take your yarn, and you're going to, well, let's move that out of the road, make a chain just like you did to start the slipper. You're making a chain, and you're making it however long you want, but you're keeping track of how many chains so that you have a second matching one with the same amount of chains for your second slipper. But you want it to make it long enough so it goes around both sides, so around this side, around the back, and then have enough length in it to be able to tie either a knot or a bow, whatever choice you're making. So I believe I did 100 when I used to do them. So I'm going to try 100. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You're going to do them very, very loosely. I'll meet you back here in a minute. 91, 92, 93, 94, 95, 96, 97, 98, 99, 100. Now I want to measure it up against my slipper. So I have the chain. I'm going to put it in half so that I know it's going to lay across, and see how it's going to go through there, and it's going to end here. And then if this is enough, see there's some stretch to tie it in a knot. That's enough for me, but if you want to tie a bow, you might want it even longer. But I like tying it in a knot and just kind of having them lay there a little bit. So for me, that 100 is enough. You might want to go to 130 though, if you're using worsted. If you're using a thicker one, so what I want to do is write down chains or number of chains for tie, and I want to put 100 so that I remember when I come back for my second slipper that the amount of chains I make is 100, so that they both are equal. So then we just cut the yarn. Don't need a big long tail because we're not needing to do too much with that. So feed it through my last chain and pull tight. You're gonna now thread on your yarn needle. Okay, it's not going to go too far, and you're going to start at the front of one of these. So you can either go into the cuff, but I like to go under the cuff. So because the cuff's on my foot, so I like to go under because that's where you want it to keep tight, and then just pull until you have some. See how there's some left over here? You want to have a little bit left over there. So I just go weave in and out, in and out. You can go through every third or fourth. You can go through every second, depending. Maybe I'll go through every second. Over here, I lost my needle. There we go. Go through every second hole now. I'm going to go through every one on the other side, just like I did here for the first couple inches, just to keep it nice and taut. Okay, now I'm going to flip over and I'm going to go every second stitch here until I get across to, this isn't a science either. I mean, you're just making a tie to tighten it on your foot, that's all. So when I get to this one, now I'm going to do every stitch, in and out of every stitch for the next few stitches. Okay, and I'm going to leave it so, see how they're together? There's a little gap in there. Pull that. See how they're uneven? But now, it'll work itself out. I'll tuck that in there. I didn't sew that in. When you pull, see how it tightens the hole. So depending on your foot, how tightly you need your foot. You might not. You might have a wider ankle where you would just need a little bit of tightening. And then you can just knot the end where the knot is. What I like to do is not get the knot, second knot on that knot. I missed it. And then I like to trim the loose end. So I like to get the knot on top of the first knot. There we go. And then I like to trim it right above the knot. I leave a little bit of a tail there. And the same with the other side. Try to get the knot. So you can see I'm getting a knot, but I'm trying to get it on the first knot that's on there. So I'm just kind of manipulating the knot, moving it up with my fingers to get it there, tighten it, and then snip. There we go. So we have just a little wee tip in there. And then you can just tie it in a knot, or actually mine are tight. I guess mine are large enough for a bow. There we go. A little bow. So that's my slipper pattern. I mean, the things are endless. Like what I might even do after is put some fuzzy yarn on the end, or some of that pipsqueak yarn around to keep my ankles warm. That might be another idea. The opportunities are endless. I also wanted to talk to you about the non-slip part. Some people have slippery floors. They say there's all kinds of different ideas out there to put stuff on here. I haven't tried anything because I use the acrylic yarn, the Red Heart Super Saver, and I've never found a problem. I've never slipped, never fell. But if you're using a slipperier yarn, maybe people can give you ideas down below what they have used. It would be great for the community to chit chat back and forth and different ideas. It's always a great thing to learn, and we don't know it all, and keep on learning. That's the main thing. I love to learn what I don't know. So I just need to go and weave in my tails now, have a couple of tails, and then to get started on my second slipper. So let me know down below what you think about this. Give it a thumbs up, and I'd love it if you hit the subscribe button. Have a great weekend, everybody. Stay safe.